Well, greetings, everybody. I'm very fortunate again to have Nick Ward on my channel to tell us about things, all sorts of things. I'm not going to go down talking about the volatile precious metal market at the moment because there's no point. I'm an old man. I've seen it all before, and it goes up and it goes down. But we're on a secular bull market in precious metals, and there's an end of it. So let's forget about it for a bit because it all comes back. There's no point in fretting. And how many times I told you it's for the long haul, it's strategic. So I'm walking away from that today, but I will be covering it with Nick again, maybe in a few weeks' time, maybe when the situation has changed. But at the moment, it's just too volatile and crazy, the paper markets and all the rest of it. Don't want to go there. But I want him to tell us all about something which, believe it or not, I only found out about 2 years ago myself, which, considering I have been in financial services in some form since 1967, I should have known about it. And I'm a bit cross with myself that I didn't know about it because I should have known. But it's something you want to pin your ears back because there is nobody watching this video to whom it does not mean something very serious. There's nobody. It means you. And so Nick's going to just talk us through it. And I hope you'll find it as interesting as I did when I discovered this situation some time ago. I have referred to it before, but not in the kind of depth that Nick's going to take us into today. So I'm going to leave it to Nick. Nick, thanks again for coming on the channel. Take it away.
Oh, you're too kind, Godfrey. There are a lot of people out there who can do a job 10 times better than I can on this. But yeah, I wanted to delve into some of the vulnerabilities of the financial system and some of the risks it might face, because I'm speaking to so many clients, so many inquiries at the moment who can't quite comprehend the level of corruption in the system, and haven't heard of a book called The Great Taking by an author named David Webb. And he's a former hedge fund manager. He spent decades in Wall Street, Godfrey, managing billions. But his real speciality is securities law and asset ownership. So this guy, he really knows his stuff. And he's really got that insider knowledge as to what's going on in the upper echelons. Now, if people don't know already, his argument is that the ultimate global endgame is for the elite to consolidate control over all private collateral, which leads to a new, fully controlled digital financial system. And over the last few decades, there's been a quiet, quite very, very calculated shift in our financial system. And if it's initiated, it could allow all financial assets to be seized. So your bank deposits, stocks, pensions, everything digital. And this grab is going to be completely legal as well. Now, what's really interesting as well, just to give it a bit of background, is he's been receiving a lot of threats from the banking lobby now for exposing this grift. Really, really aggressive in the US. And you know how strong that lobby is over there. Now, to me, that just adds validity to what he's saying, because they can't refute the basic structure of his claims. And the more you dig into it, Godfrey, the clearer it becomes. From the role of the clearing houses in this asset grab to the language in the fine print and the disclaimers that you have to sign in order to open up accounts. And this system, it's already in place. It's all there ready to go. And what it will basically do is, if the financial system hits a certain level of stress and it triggers a liquidity crisis, a liquidity event, your brokerage won't just go offline and cease trading. They won't just shut it for a bit. Your assets are actually going to be legally reassigned. So you're no longer going to own them. So we're all conditioned into the belief that when we buy stocks or leave cash in the bank, that money is ours. But the truth is, you don't own it at all. So most financial assets today, they're not held in your name. They're held in something called street name, under the control of these clearinghouses and custodians. And of course, the justification for this is because of technological progress and to make things quicker and more cost efficient. But you do not have a deed to your stocks and shares. There is no deed. So since the mid 2000s, I think it was early 2000s, there's been what they call, or what David just calls, this dematerialization, this process in the financial markets. So instead of having material certificates for your stocks and your bonds, and I mean, you were in the city when that was rife, Godfrey, of course. Now you've got the digital record of them that are just stored on a server somewhere. So when was the last time you had a stock certificate, Godfrey? I don't know whether you've managed to had one mailed to you any time recently, but
years and years ago.
Yep, and it's because you don't have individual control of them anymore. What you really have is a security entitlement, which is an IOU that says you're entitled to the value, but not the actual asset. That's not yours, that's ours. So in an emergency, these entitlements can be restructured and collateral can be reassigned, all to the large banks. And it's all permitted in the fine print that you signed off on when you open the account, your pension account, share dealing account, whatever it is. And everything hinges on this legal distinction. And no one's prepared for it. Most people that I speak to put their head in the sand, Godfrey, and I don't know one person that's read the T's and C's that come with a bank apart from you. They've got no idea what they're actually consenting on. Absolutely none.
No.
And I suppose the obvious example here in the UK is the bank bail-in, where as a deposit holder, you end up footing the bill for the bank's bad decisions. So what they do is they socialize the bank's losses and the bank's bad behavior to their innocent client base. So they'll just take your cash, convert it into equity in a deteriorating bank, and you've lost it all. And this has been the case since 2016. The Bank of England and the Prudential Regulation Authority, the PRA, they require firms to be bound by these bail-ins. It's Article 55 of the Bank Recovery and Resolution Directive. And I mean, that sounds so boring in itself. No wonder people switch off with this stuff. But this is what people have to be aware of. They don't own any of it. And if there is a significant financial crisis, they're probably going to take it all from you. When that happens, is it 5 years down the line? Yeah, it could be. Is it 2 years? I don't know. But they have the capability to do it. And look, what's going to trigger it? How is it going to begin? I mean, that's anyone's guess. And I think there's an argument to say that we're already seeing it, this global run on the system out of assets and into dollars. Iran, obviously, with the oil price shock. And this surge in the dollar, some people have been calling up and saying, oh, this is a sign of strength. Well, it's not. This is a scramble for the liquidity. As everyone's getting margin call, people are trying to get out. So we are already heading into a depression. The entire system is bankrupt. The private credit bubble, that's rolling over. And they're trying to blame the Iran war, which to me, Godfrey, I don't know about you, but this just seems like a smokescreen to me. Trump's top advisor has just come out and said, we don't know whether we can stand an oil price shock like this. The American economy is not going to recover. Well, they're already up the creek without a paddle. They're already seeing huge layoffs. You might have spoken to Clive about this, Godfrey, but they're totally fixing the employment numbers over in America. We've been seeing massive layoffs in every other sector apart from healthcare. And I wonder why that one's going up, Godfrey. I don't want to speculate too much. But the AI narrative, that's falling apart. They've already got a digital system in place to take everything at the moment as it stands.
And we need to talk, maybe just, I think that coming into that whole factor, all of which what you've just said, yeah, you're absolutely right. Of course, we're looking at the phenomenon of bond yields, which can't go up, but can't go down, have to go up. But we, we're living on bond yields of at the moment. You're kicking around where they were in the sort of the early Edwardian period. Really, it was a late Victorian period. Gilt's just the same, which of course is totally non-commensurate with what is actually going on. But of course, if with this amount of debt we've been living on debt for so long, interest rates can't go up. And I don't think your life assurance company, your pensions, everything is wrapped up in bond interest rate yields and so on and so forth. I don't see it. I've been wrong. I've got to be fair and open with everybody. I've been wrong. I thought it was going to happen a lot sooner than this, regardless of the ludicrous Israeli-sponsored war in the Middle East. I just don't see, but my timing seems to be out recently. The last few years, my timing's out. I don't know how you feel.
I don't think anyone could time this insanity, Godfrey. There's no way of reacting to it, really. They're just, it is insane. They're revealing their scripted response, I think, at the moment to this Iranian crisis. I think both sides may even be managed by the same people. Who knows? But I think this response to the Iranian crisis, which is so rehearsed, energy lockdowns, rationing. I think this is always their goal, Godfrey. But they needed their crisis. Now they've got it. I heard, I don't know whether you saw on the news the other day, fertilizer crisis because of the Straits of Hormuz.
Yes, indeed. It's a very big part of things. And of course, I've been laughed at for some time, quite rightly, probably, with my sponsorship of Fray Bentos pies. I've been stacking Fray. Some people stack gold and silver, which I have done too, but I stack Fray Bentos pies, which I've got to say now are just gravy pies. They're not steak pies, they're gravy pies, but they're jolly good if you squidge around with mashed potato. And I can last quite a long time on that basis. It's the only thing my wife won't steal from me.
Well, I think we're certainly going to start to see emergency measures going on for years now. Years and years. So you're definitely doing the right thing. It's not just about stacking gold and silver. There's a myriad of different things that you should be doing to get prepared for this type of thing. A generator, that's something I've just bought two of. Really, really important.
I bought one 4 years ago, which everybody laughed at. The generator, the meat pies, we've got a small holding. But I'm an old geezer, you see. I've sort of seen this sort of thing. My father's seen it before. My grandfather's seen this kind of thing before. And I'm not one of life's panickers. I'm not allowed to panic. I'm ex-Santos. So I don't panic, but I do get concerned.
Well, yeah, it's going to get messy. And we're already in so much trouble before this even happened. And it feels like this is the kind of final matador blow, if you like, that's coming in just to increase maximum devastation in every area of life. And if they don't come to the rescue with a bailout, I mean, the system's going to unwind. Sorry, Godfrey.
Yeah, I was just thinking that I was in office when the Cyprus the bail-in came and all sorts of things and all the dreadful thing, and everybody thought it couldn't happen. Of course, it was Cyprus, so everybody thought it couldn't happen to anybody else. Well, it's Cyprus, which is Mickey Mouse. But the funny, banking-wise, that is. But of course, life isn't that simple. And I saw people who had their money in the wrong account. One had a business account. He was a retired army officer, and he'd started a brewery in Cyprus, but it put his gratuity into an account which was business, and it didn't qualify as personal, and he lost his life savings.
Wow.
And of course it's the same today. If you've got money, people think they've got money in deposit, and they talk glibly about this sort of deposit guarantee by the government. Most people have no idea what can happen. And the legislation, Kate, is already there. They're not going to have to put emergency legislation in. It's already there. It's a stroke of a pen. It's a stroke of a pen that they can do these things with.
Yeah, exactly that. And I know it isn't just gold and silver, obviously land. And that is something that has a real commodity. It has utility. And even if they crash the price of property, then having that small holding is just going to prove invaluable here.
I was told the other day that if you don't have the deeds of your house in the bottom drawer, of course you don't have those either. So I do. Old geezers have the deeds.
The deed again. Yeah.
Yeah, the deeds are in the drawer because we're old. But people, youngsters who are paying their mortgages and bits and pieces, no,
No.
the deeds aren't theirs.
Yep. It's all about the deed. It doesn't matter what it is. But I think this is starting to happen and starting to unwind. And try to maybe, I say to people as well, just don't bother with any mainstream media. Avoid all the headlines, because what's actually happening quietly in the background is really nefarious. And look, a lot of the large funds are dumping assets. They're getting out of tech, out of bonds. There won't be any panic by retail, but the smart money are exiting. We're seeing some of the most sophisticated investors moving billions out. Stanley Druckenmiller, Warren Buffett, Paul Tudor Jones, selling tech, buying gold. Michael Burry, of course, of The Big Short. He's short on AI now. And I think the real sign's going to come when a major institution like a multinational bank, they suddenly halt their withdrawals from high yield funds. Something like that. And we've just seen that with BlackRock earlier this month.
Indeed, we have.
Investors, I think redemption requests went up by over 9%. 26 billion corporate lending fund. No, we're just going to shut it. So I've been saying that, and then that happened. I mean, that's quite scary. BlackRock are the biggest. So the whole financial system, it's based on trust. And once trust starts to crack, things just go downhill pretty quickly. And we are going to get so many more headlines like this about food shortages, energy shortages. Maybe we might get a few false flag events being blamed on particular people, Godfrey. That's not going to surprise me at all. Don't react to those. Look at them critically. I think we're going to see central banks increase interest rates. And that could cause the dollar to rise even more. There might be a coordinated global action by central banks like the Bank of England, Fed, ECB. They might hold an emergency meeting in the future and say, look, this time, instead of actually injecting liquidity, we're going to pull the rug, implement the plan that's been sitting there for years, because they actually want to reset it rather than save it. That's worrying. You go. Sorry, Godfrey.
I'm just sorry to interject there. Yeah, I agree with you, and I see that. And another thing that it seems to me, now I'd be very interested in your view on this, that we sort of were thinking, hello, is it price manipulation? Getting back to gold, precious metals, price manipulation, so on and so forth. But the longer I look at it, what I see is that we've seen a rush to liquidity, as always happens. Liquidity is gold, isn't it? That is your international liquidity situation. So I think people are running for the dollar, and it's two steps. First, dollar in order to settle it, and it's not just countries. It's chaps like me, for example. If I had a liquidity, if I was young and had kids at school, for example, and I had school fees and I had a gold stash, what could I do? If it was Armageddon time, I would have to cash my gold in for Mickey Mouse pound notes to pay the bloody school fees or take the kid out of school, which is the sort of last thing you ever do, isn't it? Take your kids out of school or not pay the mortgage, etc., etc. But it's my feeling, especially when we're dealing with Gulf states, who must be considering cutting and departing.
Saudis certainly are. And they've got huge amounts of gold. Absolutely tons and tons of it. Every time I'm in Switzerland, who's been buying this largest? Oh, yep, Saudis again. And yeah, it is actually, I'd say, more liquid for your man on the Clapham omnibus, Godfrey, than cash in the bank, because as we have spoken about so many times, it's getting harder and harder and harder for people to get their money out. It's one excuse here, a little excuse there. It's tiny little tweaks constantly all the time. And I think the sign that this is actually going to happen is when people log in the morning or try and get on their banking apps. Maybe it just takes a little bit longer than usual to get on. You might find a blank screen or a missing balance in your accounts. It might say temporary maintenance. And initially, people aren't going to panic about that at all. They're going to be, oh, it's only temporary, everything's fine. And they'll come up with all these silly excuses about security improvements or transaction volumes being too high. Yeah, that's going to escalate into the banks limiting withdrawals entirely and pausing wire transfers. So you'll be locked out of all your investment platforms, all your brokerage accounts. There'll be a lot of official sounding jargon, but it all boils down to just one brutal truth, which is you cannot access your money and you cannot get it out of the bank. And what truly matters is what they're not disclosing under this emergency regulation. All the assets held in the clearing houses, all the custodians, they're no longer your property. And that's all by the very design of the system. You were never the legal owner to begin with. You're just the beneficiary. You're a claimant holding a representation. And in an emergency, that representation is going to get reassigned. So your stocks will be used as collateral. Cash will be converted into CBDCs, of course, which will be programmable and trackable. And when people, I think, finally wake up and realize what's actually happened, their wealth's going to just have vanished. It's going to be absorbed into the system. And it'll all be legal and all done very, very quietly with a sleight of hand. And then, of course, we get this grand restructuring. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to look, but people might adapt, I think, quicker than they'd like to think, and they won't put up too much of a fight because they're just not going to have a choice. And I think they're going to have this CBDC waiting there in a few years' time. They'll have it rolled out, I don't know, in a day, 2 days, who knows? But it's going to go to every citizen. And it's more likely than that, it's just going to be programmable credit, be integrated with your phone or your digital ID. And that will just impose strict limits on how quickly you can spend it, basically. And that'll be with things to do with your age, your carbon score, your credit score. They'll pause it, they'll revoke it. You'll just be entirely at the mercy of the system and the whims of whoever's in power. That is absolutely terrifying. And of course, it's all being made. Sorry.
And the branches are going. I mean, my local branch of the Halifax in the town is going. Lovely ladies, very helpful. And we've got a small banking issue at the moment. And we've got to go in. We've got to go in to see the ladies, sit down and say, why isn't this working? And can we look at that? And they're disappearing so quickly. And one can't help but think that the last thing they want is isolated outposts of staff in local high streets with people not being able to give their money back. Unless, of course, banks are run by people who run the Royal Marines in the United States, who put 200 or 300 of them on an island just off the coast of Iran. Bloody
that's an excellent idea.
I'm not an American Marine with those sort of bloody code of the Bushido generals that put it. I mean, you couldn't believe any of that. I mean, the trouble is, every day you think, you wake up, it couldn't get more daft than yesterday.
No.
And it does. It does.
How can they honestly think landing people on that island is going to succeed? Of course, we all know what happened in Gallipoli, Godfrey, with that.
Yes.
Churchill thought he could get in there, all the arrogance, all the hubris.
Yes.
I don't know how many battleships they had, but they couldn't get past the straits with the Turks there because
through the straits.
With old kit, old guns, absolute disaster. My great-grandfather was there. It's just insanity, and these poor people just going off to fight for this idiocy. It's upsetting. It really is.
It is.
But it's part of this plan. Just going back to CBDCs there quickly, Godfrey. Of course, Sunak's father-in-law is in charge of creating them for us. Just when you think the level of corruption and evil just couldn't get any worse, he's got the contract. And of course, the guy, he invested in, what was it, Theleme Partners, I think it was, and bought a load of shares in Moderna, I believe, before, with no history or background whatsoever. And then, of course, made hundreds of billions. I mean, the guy's a billionaire now. People that are in power of the country should not come in, should not be making billions. That should not be happening. But we are rotten to the core. The whole system is. And then what they're going to do, they're going to come and present it to us like they're the saviors. They're the messiahs, and people will be begging for assistance, and then they'll promote it as a cure for this uncertainty and this risk. A real attempt at gaslighting, I think, in say, look, don't worry, your money's secure now. It's all embedded in the system. You're safe. Fear not, we'll ensure that you've got everything that you need, and people will be chomping at the bit to get into the system. And that's going to establish the new normal, leading entire industries, I think, as well, overnight to transform. I think a lot of investment companies are going to stop taking deposits in the conventional way, Godfrey. Maybe they'll start allocating credits that you're entitled to, or dividends to your digital wallet. I don't think you'll be able to buy stocks in the traditional sense, because ownership's going to be limited to accredited institutions, and they'll inevitably be the ones that supported the collapse, of course. Traditional banks, they're going to get more centralized. Yeah, I don't think we'll see any branches. I think we'll end up with a few small commercial banks, before ultimately maybe you only end up with a central bank. And that's the general trend over the last 100 years, just more and more and more centralization, which of course creates more chance of corruption and control. I think your pension, that's going to be restructured. Home equity, that might be revalued. So everything's going to appear like it's intact, but the control of those assets has fundamentally changed. That they will. It's so funny. You know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to frame it as a stabilization event, or we took decisive action to ensure market stability to prevent any contagion or anything like that. But this is going to be an entirely new paradigm, basically, long story short, between ownership being a privilege and not a right. That's what's going to happen. They want everything. It's insatiable lust.
Plus the fact that you always know this can happen or will happen at some stage by the very silence of mainstream legacy media. You would have thought, would you not, the Spectator or the Financial Times editorial or the Daily Telegraph editorial would be running centre-page spreads on what we're talking about today. The fact that they're not tells you it's going to happen. Rather, a lot of people would imagine, oh, that tells you it's not going to happen. Quite the reverse. Quite the reverse. It shouldn't be left to us to have these conversations. It should be panorama of the old style, But all their salaries are paid for by the government. So who's going to blow the whistle on all this until it's too late?
Exactly that. I mean, this is it just requires people just coming onto YouTube and talking about it, I think. That's the only way that's good. But then even then, that's censored. We've had so many things censored in the past, Godfrey, because we've touched upon topics that obviously the powers that be don't like. And these laws, these loopholes, all these shifts in language and these nuances, they are all real. And there is no smoke without fire. All this is happening, but very, very silently. And you're right. You don't hear a peep from the mainstream about it. But look, in addition to this destabilization, this is another thing I really, really wanted to talk about, Godfrey. Yes, we have the destabilization of the financial system. The Great Reset is fantastic. It's a great read. I think everybody should go out and clue themselves up with it. But there's something more insidious that's being intentionally set up in place as well in anticipation of this, which is just as significant. So, look, just going back slightly, trust everywhere. It's being systematically eroded. The corruption, the hypocrisy, the two-tier justice system, it's all on display. Everyone can see it. Actually, in actual fact, it's being lauded in our faces. They're rubbing it in our faces. And public confidence in government institutions and the media is, yes, it's non-existent. And there is a crisis of credibility. That's what it is, a crisis of credibility. And this isn't coincidence, because as the more corruption comes to light, confidence in the entire system is destroyed. Everything. And that is precisely what they want. That is the objective. So the relentless turmoil, the continuous stream of negativity all the time is designed to incite panic, drive illogical choices, and dismantle any remaining trust that anyone has. And when citizens lose faith in the economy, in their government, their institutions, the justice system, the media, there's nothing left to safeguard or to care about. And at that stage, society doesn't need any external forces. It's destroyed from within. It implodes. So this situation isn't just about destabilizing the markets. It's about systematically undermining the very concepts of a stable and equitable society and the West. It's all about destroying the West, paving the way psychologically for what lies ahead. And look, yeah, you're right. Nothing's guaranteed, Godfrey. Hopefully we can fight back. And I think we can if enough people can actually notice what the hell's going on. This could blow up in their faces, but it's just raising awareness of what's going on. That is going to be one of the most powerful ways to awaken people, really. It's absolutely crucial for safeguarding everyone that we actually care about, and our country is just spreading the word. But that window is only going to remain there for a very, very short period of time. The life raft will not be there forever. So we have to prepare as many people for what's coming and for these challenges. And if individuals own nothing, they are not going to be happy, Godfrey. I can guarantee you that. There's going to be a huge societal upheaval. And when these resets happen, they're so complex and warped and intentionally obscured. And it just leaves the majority of people completely unaware of what's coming on the horizon. They're like a rabbit in the headlights. They're unable to grasp the reality until it's too late. And I think this is what worries me as well, because obviously this is what happened in Bolshevik Russia. Some people are actively going to engage in the seizure of other citizens' wealth, mistakenly believing that they're championing social justice, they're doing the right thing. And considering how many young people are struggling and are ideologically captured, they're locked out of the housing market, they are extremely woke. You can't dismiss that possibility. Some might participate in it and go along with it, with the expropriation of other people's property, thinking, oh, those selfish boomers, all those above the age of 60, none of them work for their money. And with the youth of today, I don't think that's far-fetched at all. I don't know about you, but I think a small group of people could be pushed into some kind of violent action if it's sanctioned or endorsed by the government or various political parties. And then you end up with blood on the streets. It's terrifying.
I would argue the French Revolution is probably the real template, but you could argue historically about that. But certainly something has got to give. But I think the best that we can do is make people aware. And if people are aware, and they can do all sorts of small things, for their families. It's all very well. If you're a wealthy fellow, you can put your money in precious metals and so on and so forth. As I say, land. I don't believe land to be safe the way it's registered at the moment, but that's another thing. And somebody wrote to me, and I was going to just say this because I get it a lot. A question I get a lot. Oh, Godfrey, what happens if? What am I going to do with a gold sovereign if I want to buy a loaf of bread? Because I've got this, it's ridiculous. How can I deal with it? I'll just cover that because people just say that so often. Look, if you have a strategic reserve, let's say it's a gold sovereign, or let's say it's a silver Britannia, it doesn't matter what it is. And I don't want to go down the precious metal route, but one has to a certain extent. That will always have some form of value within whatever system people are going to have to trade. People are going to have to buy bread, a bottle of milk, a bottle of beer. They're going to have to do that. So they're going to have to do something. So if you've got your gold coin, you can actually buy those credits broken up into small pieces to go about your business and buy. So don't worry that you've got a gold sovereign, which at the moment is worth £800, and you've made plenty of money if you listen to me and and Nick in the past, that will always transfer itself, just like today. You change it for paper money if you need it. You change it for paper money or coin for the shops or something like that. So don't get hung up on that. And a word, of course, to people who also say, "Oh, it's all very well for you. I don't have any money." Well, you're all right, mate, aren't you? If you don't have any money, they can't bloody steal it.
They're not going to worry about it.
No.
If anything, the people that have absolutely nothing are going to be far more beneficial under this scheme, as it tries to create a
But well, look, we'll leave it there, I think, because it's a bit doom and gloom. But I think
it is. It is, Godfrey. It is doom and gloom, and I hate being the naysayer of bad news, because it seems like every time we talk about a topic like this, it's just all doom and gloom. But it isn't. We need somebody to stand up from the financial industry and say, "Listen, this is what's going on. Look at the contract behind all of this," and say, "No, enough's enough." Get on these parliamentary committees. Say this is how the system's operating. The banking lobby certainly do it. They are huge, massively influential. But we need people from our side trying to influence policy and bring it back the other way, if that's even possible, or whether just engaging in the system is completely pointless. But it's this normalcy bias, the assumption that tomorrow is going to mirror today. And this blinds people, and they're like that frog in the proverbial pot. Oh, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's only one other right that's been taken away, or just another little tax there, or a right loss there. But we just have to stand up and say, hey, enough is enough. And we can, because there's a hell of a lot more of us than there is of them. So yeah, got to leave it on a positive note, because it isn't doom and gloom. And that is actually part of their plan and their narrative as well. They want you to be nihilistic. They want you to feel down and out. You don't have to, because we know what's happening. Accept it, take ownership, protect yourself, and then you can sit back and help out other people too. So it's certainly not a doom and gloom message that I'm trying to get across here when I'm encouraging people to read this book. But people just have to wake up and take some ownership. That's all.
Well, thank you very much. We'll leave it on that note. And I'm pretty sure that when we, on various matters, I think when we get together again, maybe in a month's time or something, I think certain aspects will be looking a bit brighter.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I think certain aspects of what we got today will be a bit brighter. Some won't, but some will. And so we'll get together on that basis. And thank you again, dear boy, for coming on.
Thanks again, Goddard.
And speak to you again soon.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
Thanks. As most of you know, my work is very heavily independently research-based. And I get my information from all over the world. It would help if you press the subscribe button and the little bell next to it, because the more subscribers I have, the more likely it is that international independent research institutes will share their material with me. It's most helpful, and then of course I automatically share it with you. So surprise, won't cost you anything. Thank you very much.